All right, so as I said, don't come to Vietnam, don't live in Vietnam. Visit the place, but don't live here. Yes, I know. You're going to say, yeah, but you've lived there for 12 years, Ray, and here you are saying don't live there after you've been living there for 12 years. Well, I'll explain a little bit later about how you get to the point of no return. And I'm way past the point of no return. And us expats that have been here for a long time, you actually get to a point where you just can't go back to your own country. But I'll explain that later. So my name is Ray. If you haven't seen my channel before, this is an Aussie in Vietnam. I have been living in Vietnam for 12 years. 2013, I moved here. It was supposed to be for 3 or 6 months. And here I am 12 years later in a very new world, very new life. So let me not focus on my history. That's not really worth talking about. But what is worth talking about is your history and your dreams. Many people have this dream about coming to live in Vietnam, and on the surface, it looks really, really exciting. You know, everything's cheap. The people are wonderful. It's an adventure. You're learning something new every day. You get to travel, you know, like here I am in Ho Chi Minh City, and I'm only, 4 or 5 hours drive from Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. I'm 90 minutes flight from places like Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, and the like. You know, it is just wonderful, yeah. But there comes a point in that timeline where it stops being, the long honeymoon, I'll call it. It's probably the world's longest honeymoon. Most people have this thing where they go somewhere and 3 months and things change. You know, they get a bit of a downer, and reality hits. It doesn't hit much longer here in Vietnam. Seriously, you could hang around for 2 or 3 years before that reality kind of like hits you. For me, when I first came here, it was all about the visa, and still is about the visa, and we'll talk about the visa in just a second. When I came here, they had a 3-month visa, and they also had a 1-year business visa, which I didn't know about for the first couple of years, but I ended up getting. And my whole life was around visa. It was near on impossible to get a TRC, a temporary residence card, but you know, you had to be working for the big companies with the big systems, and the small companies never bothered because no one ever checked. That has changed somewhat now. Quickly talk about the reason that you don't want to live here because of the visa. The visa system is a real struggle, but the visa system is designed to make it that any person who is not a Vietnamese citizen is sitting right on the edge of existence. You know, you're living here as a guest. Essentially, you're a long-term tourist. And even though you're allowed to work and earn money and even have a bank account in some circumstances, you really do live on the edge all the time. And over time, that goes from being kind of exciting to being really, really disappointing. You know, you really get disappointed from not having that sense of, this is my home, but the people around me are not treating it like my home. The people around me are treating it like I'm a guest here. And it just scratches away at you. Everything scratches away at you. And, you know, I've had some experiences in recent times where, you know, I got raided by the police, because here in Vietnam, we have a system where no matter where you are supposed to register with the police. Now, there are different ways, different processes, but essentially, if you stay at a hotel, the hotel's supposed to do it. If you rent an apartment, the apartment owner is supposed to do it. If you live with family, a family member is supposed to do it. Even if you stay, if you come in and stay for one night, you're supposed to register. That is an administration thing that is that's part of the culture of Vietnam. Whilst it sounds pretty normal, that whole process can be really, really difficult for a foreigner. Those of us who just rent and we don't have family, like I'm married, so I have family here, and I stay at families' houses, and I do different things to what we would say the normal expat would do. So I'm really, really affected by this system. and it wears on you, you know. So I've been here for 12 years. And I got a married TRC for 3 years, and I got work permits, and I've got everything I need. I'm totally legal, but it's still a drain on your energy. You know, at any time, someone can just turn off the switch and you find yourself in no man's land. Another big issue with long-term expats is this idea of being able to buy a house and settle down, you know. Yes, expats do buy houses, okay? But the system that it sits in is so fragile as a foreigner that it's a high risk. It can be high reward, don't get me wrong. It can be a very high reward, but they have mechanisms in place that allow for construction that doesn't reflect demand especially within the capital cities like Ho Chi Minh City, where I live. What does that mean? What that means is that the poor are living in these really average conditions, old housing, shanty type setups. And then there are rich places, like where I live at the moment. I call it a rich place because it's a new development. It's on an island. It's just at the edge of the city. And there are $1 million houses here. I don't live in a $1 million house. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent. But they're all empty. The whole place is empty. You know, let's say there's 4,000, 5,000 houses and apartments here. There's probably close to 1,000 apartments. Of those 1,000 apartments, maybe 15% are occupied. Of the houses, which range from these little 1-bedroom studios up to I think they're 5 or 6 bedroom mansions, literally mansions. They're more than $1 million American dollars worth of mansion. Probably about 3% of them are being used. It's just crazy, and they're building more. They're building more down towards Ho Chi Minh City. If you check out my YouTube page, you'll see some fly cam footage of it that I took. Actually, I took it earlier today, so it's online now. And it's just bizarre. So you've got these people that are homeless, and then you've got these empty places that are being built. People are buying them, but it's the richer people are buying them, but they're just not using them. They're not wanting to rent them out because it's, you know, why take the risk? And it's just difficult. The whole system is difficult. So as a foreigner, you are more likely to go to, you know, Tao Din or Phu My Hung or these District 1, these places that are, we call them foreigner friendly, and they become foreign enclaves. Now that leads me to the next story. How much does it cost? Let me give you a definition without saying any numbers. It costs you everything to live in Vietnam. What I mean by that is that if you're the average Joe, okay, so there are people in Vietnam that are foreigners, Koreans, Chinese, Australians, Americans, English people, French people, Germans, the whole lot. There are a few people that are living in this country that have been very, very successful in their endeavours. You know, they've opened businesses up, sold businesses. They've been very, very successful. So there is that component of successful people. The majority of us, and indeed I'm probably, when I'm talking to people, I'm talking to the, let's say the over 40s or over 45 set. The younger people will come, you know, you can hang on for 2 years living out of makeshift apartments and sharing with friends, and then after your 1 or 2 years you can shoot off. That's no worries and go to your next adventure. These older people that are getting towards retirement, it will take everything you've got. Now, whilst I can buy a beer for $1, I can buy lunch for $1.50. My fuel is $1 a litre. And what do I spend? I spend about $50 a week on fuel, and I do quite a lot of driving. I do about 1,000 k's a week now, and you know, it will ultimately cost you everything, because what happens, even if you are working like me, I've been actively working here for the entire 12 years. I've lived here except for 2 months where I took a short break after my last job. Another story, and so. I've worked here for 12 years straight, and I've worked really hard. I've freelanced, and I've worked as a teacher and a trainer, and you name it, I've done it. And I've made money. Okay, I've been able to survive, grow, a little bit of savings. I've done all the good things, all the right things. But even though I've done all that for 12 years, my savings that I have now, which I think I would put as being reasonable for a person of my age, in my situation, take that as you will. But I've done okay. But I can't go back to Australia. I can't go back to Australia and set up an apartment, look for a job. I'd go back to Australia, and because I don't have a medical degree or an engineering degree or a science degree or some massive qualification that will put me straight in at the top of the tree, I have to go back down the bottom. I would probably have to do what many foreigners do when they go to Australia, is that I have to go back down to the bottom of the tree and work as a security guard or a truck driver or, a salesman or some basic job, because I've been out of the market for 12 years and experience means a lot in Australia. So, I don't really have an avenue to go back to Australia. I could, but I would lose everything I have in the process, and I would literally be starting again. I just don't know how that is possible. And therefore, that's why I say I'm kind of like I've gone past that threshold, and I'm now locked in here. Of course, if you don't know, I am married. I have a wife. If you might be able to hear the dog whinging down here beside me, I have a dog. And I have a very good life, as far as, I have a good family around me here. My wife and her family are wonderful people. I have two dogs, actually. One's crazy. One's my little girl. I have a good job. I am able to pay the bills and eat and put a little bit away at the end of the day. And I have a motorbike that I drive to work on. That's the way we do it here. I don't really want for anything, but I know that I'm really locked in here. I don't have the money to go back to Australia, and I don't want to go anywhere else. I don't want to go and set up in Malaysia or Thailand or whatever. My wife's Vietnamese. She gives me that grounding to want to stay here. But the efforts of trying to go to Australia to work, even if I went to Australia to work for 6 months, it would be a really big struggle for me, and it would cost me everything I've saved, which is a real problem. After the happiness ends. So, again, there is no timing here. For some people it's 1 year, for some people it's 5 years, for some people it's 10. But there comes a point in your life here, where you don't find the happiness anymore, and you are still happy living here. You still enjoy the adventures, you still enjoy what's around you, but you lose this happiness. And what I think it's from is not actually what is so much around you, but it's what is not around you. So here in Vietnam, to do things like building, handyman work, fix a car, very, very few foreigners have the ability to be able to do that. Not because they don't have the skill, because they aren't like me. I'm sure many people watching are like me. They sat back in their younger years and they pulled cars apart and they built backyard sheds and painting. And, my previous job, I was an alarm installer, so I did a bit of electrical engineering stuff. We were all pretty handy, but when you come to Vietnam, there is no option to do that. You don't have any tools. You don't have any space to do your handiwork. And that is why so many men end up just going to the bar and drinking, because there literally isn't anything else that you can do. I am very lucky I have one outlet or two outlets really. Um, I have photography, which I do a bit in my spare time, and I also make these YouTube videos. And I also am a writer. I write for the newspaper, and that gives me a little bit of a motivation to get up and do something with my brain and my fingers. I also ride a bicycle. I have been pretty quiet this year with bicycle riding, but I am getting back into it now after a stint with anxiety and PTSD, and I hold on to those things so dearly because everything else I want to do, I can't. I would love to. I'd love to install a camera. I'd love to, paint a room or build a shed out the back. Get a colour bond shed and put them together out the back. I just can't. There is no Bunnings. The Bunnings effect. I went to Australia earlier this year. I walked in the Bunnings and I didn't know what to do. I was like a bloody, I was like someone from the hills of Papua New Guinea walking into West Point or Westfield Parramatta for the first time. It was just, look at, but I couldn't take anything back to Vietnam because you can't put batteries in planes anymore. There's weight limits. There's stuff like that, So I was hamstrung. So I looked at it and went, oh, geez, I wish I had that. And I wish I had that. Oh, I'd love to have that in my bathroom. But they were too heavy, too pricey, whatever. And I walked out of Bunnings with a single bolt, 120mm bolt for my bicycle. And guys, it really does get stressful. I don't know about women. Women are probably a bit different than men, being that you can have your craft and stuff a little bit, but those men who really enjoy being manual, it's a real struggle. My last point for today, I want to talk to you about the visa system. All right, and basically I want to tell you what it's not what it is. What it's not is there is no option for residency for Westerners. Okay, just put that in your head. Okay, you can do a Google search and it'll come up with some fancy little paragraph that talks about how it was proposed and ratified that foreigners can achieve residency in Vietnam if they follow the following criteria. All right, bullshit. Okay, you will not get residency no matter what in Vietnam. All right, I've been here for 12 years. I'm married to a Vietnamese girl. I speak Vietnamese. If anyone can get residency as a white person, a Westerner in Vietnam, it would be someone like me. No chance. Okay. So residency and becoming Vietnamese is out of the question. Okay, the only one that's harder to get in the world is Japan, I believe. All right. If you want to get residency in another country, go somewhere else. Go to go to Brazil or Chile or Bolivia or somewhere like that, because you're not going to get it here. All right. You will always, for your entire time that you're here, be a visitor on a visa or a temporary residence card that puts you on the edge of society, and that's just it, full stop. Okay. Retirement visas. Now, there has been a lot of talks post-COVID about offering retirement visas. Now, the purpose of a retirement visa was to bring income into the country because they're foreseeing a drop in GDP because the average age of the population is increasing. That all sounds wonderful, but I'll tell you the truth. No retirement visa, no. They talked about it. There's been no decree. There's been no decision. There's been no implementation. And my personal view, it'll never happen. It'll never happen because I go back to being raided by the police a few weeks ago at my home because of a registration error. All right. If you have a 10-year visa, then you have to allow things to occur in Vietnam that are not currently occurring. So there have to be. It's a waterfall effect. If you change the visa, then you have to start changing everything below it to accommodate for that 10-year visa. And no disrespect to Vietnam, but they're just not there yet. They are light years away. You know, when you enter the country, different subject, but when you enter the country, you've still got a guy stamping your bloody passport. You know, every other country, every other Western country, or every other developed country in the world now have face scanners, fingerprint readers, and electronic readers of passports. Here, mate, I come back to Australia. I come back from Australia only a couple of months ago in August, and I waited for 3 hours to get through immigration. You know, that's the level of sophistication that Vietnam has. Not their own, and again, I'm not being critical of the country. I'm just saying that's where they're at. Licensing. If you want to get a driver's license, you got to get a medical, and then you got to get your things transferred, and then you got to go and do this and got to do that and do that. It takes 2 freaking weeks and about 3 visits to the registry office just to get a license. Then the license cancels if your TRC or your home driver's license date ends. So if you have a driver's license that might be ending next year, you only get a 6-month or a 1-year bloody driver's license. If your TRC is expiring, in 6 months' time, you get a 6-month driving license. So you're giving up 2 or 3 days' work every time you go and get a license. That's just not productive, Again, immigration stamp, bang, bang, bang. Until they get more technology, that the immigration, you entering the country relates to the driver's license. And the date on the driver's license is forward plan and liquid to you leaving the country, they'll never get it right. So if they can't get this right, and they can't get the work permit dates right, and they can't get the TRC dates right, and they can't get the registration right for foreigners, because there are just too many cogs in the wheel, how the hell are they going to get a retirement visa right? I can't see it. So guys, that's, from someone who's here, that's my view. If you want to come here, drink yourself stupid on an Australian pension or American pension or wherever you come from, and die young, come here. I do know people that do that. They say, you know what? I'm 67 years old. I've got no family. I get me super every month. I'm not going to pay, $15 a beer at the local bar. So they come to Vietnam, and I've even seen some people say, I just don't have a visa because I'm never going home. I'm never going back to Australia. I'm never going back to America. I don't even have a visa. And they just live here illegally, drink. They're at the bar at 10 o'clock every morning, drink themselves stupid with the purpose of they are just waiting to die. That's not me. I'm a bit too young for that. And, I've got a bit too much to live for. But you got those people in Thailand. They got those people in Cambodia. In most of these developing countries, you'll find people like that. I met a French woman, same, not a drinker, but she was in a resort, and that resort was $1,000 a month. The rent for her apartment in Paris was something like about $3,500 a month, and she was 75 or 80 years old, and she would just come here she came here. Her son lives, who lived in the city, and she said, you know what? I'm never going back to France. I hate the place. I'm just going to come here, enjoy my red wine, and swim every day until I die. And when I die, I die. That's the way it goes. Interesting. And look, maybe one day I'll get to the same point. I don't know. But, for most of us, Vietnam is not the right place to live. Okay? It's a good place to come and live for a short time, for 1 year. Great. Come here and, spend 3 months here, 3 months in Australia or whatever. There are a number of good options for spending time in Vietnam. Thinking that you can sell your house and move here and live forever is not one of them, okay? So that's my little chat for today. I'm Ray, an Aussie in Vietnam, and I look forward to seeing you again soon with another chat because, I'm back. I'm back from, I'm back from where I was. I just a quick post note. I've been suffering with PTSD for the last 18 months. PTSD had come along because of a number of historical matters, but I experienced a massive amount of bullying and victimization at my work. And I left that job earlier this year, and I've started a new job back at teaching at high school, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm going through the motions, and the anxiety attacks have stopped. I've got more energy, and I'm looking forward to getting some more videos on YouTube of me actually sharing my skills and experience from my 12 years here in Vietnam. So please, if you've got a subject you want me to talk about, send me a note, and I will be happy to do my best to assist you with it. Also, if you're a person in Vietnam and you've got a story to tell, happy to do a podcast with you. Yeah, we can hook up and have a bit of a chat and put it online, because I'm not the only person with stories to tell in this country. I know you have too. So thanks, guys. Have a great day, and see you next time on an Aussie in Vietnam. Bye-bye.